Sixers president of basketball operations and general manager Bryan Colangelo. It's going to join me on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN as the Sixers right away used the pick swap last night. You almost forgot about that thing, but here it is 2 years later, Brian. As soon as it popped up on the screen, there was a little confusion from Joel, but once he saw what was going down, he seemed like he was into it. So a big night for you guys last night.
Yeah, not bad. We could have walked out of there with a pick, maybe 5 or 6. We ended up moving up from 4 to 3. And as you said, we had actually dropped back to 5, but with the pick swap, we're able to move back up to 3. I think the confusion might have come just because of that other Sacramento pick at 10 that popped up. We were all hoping not to see their name come up at all. As you know, when that Nick pick finally did come up at 8, it just meant that we did jump into that top 3 opportunity. So there was still a lot of unknowns. Were the Lakers still on the board? Had they jumped ahead, which they did, there was a lot of different scenarios that could have played out, but at the end of the day, I think the smile on Magic Johnson's face said it all when he realized, because there was even confusion there, but when he realized he was keeping his pick, he was in pretty good shape. But, yeah, the pick swap came in handy and moved us up to a position to make a decision on all these players that we've got interest in. There's a lot of discussion about 1 and 2, but we're sitting at 3 with a lot of good choices to make. So I think that it's going to work out well.
Yeah, so you're at 3. You didn't get the 2 picks like many people were hopeful for, but now at least moving forward, you have 2 next year and 2 in the year after that. So is it settling to finally say, hey, now we know we don't have to go through this, protected, unprotected? Like, I got to assume going into an offseason when you don't know how many picks at this stage of the game does make it a little bit more difficult. I guess it's somewhat settling to say we now know where we are moving forward.
Exactly. Clarity means a lot. The notion that there was always uncertainty when you're talking to teams and even just valuing those assets for trade discussions, it's pretty safe to say people can look at the Lakers, monitor what they do over the course of the summer, and then know and understand, what their prospect looks like for next year. So we'll have something of legitimate value, something tangible to think about, whether using for us in a draft selection or using in a trade scenario. Same thing for the Sacramento pick in 19. Everyone's kind of looking at that team. They've more or less dismantled their team to some degree. Moving DeMarcus Cousins was a big decision. Some people consider that kind of going backward or knocking the wall down, if you will. They've actually performed quite well since. Gave their couple of their young guys a chance to play and perform and branch out a little bit. The Scal Labissiere, play down the stretch was pretty encouraging to watch from their perspective. Even Willie Cauley-Stein, he's played well down the stretch. Buddy Hield kind of opened up a little bit. It's interesting to just monitor what other teams are doing, but when you're holding their future asset, we're paying very close attention.
Bryan Colangelo is with us. The Sixers used their pick swap to get number 3. You said in the past, Brian, that this was a jumping off point, the next phase. How much did last year's 18-win improvement, coupled with the number 3 pick, maybe change your expectations moving forward?
Well, the big variable that we need to, factor in is, what would we have been had Ben Simmons not hurt himself or Jared Bayless not hurt himself in the early part of the year? The season could look dramatically different, even with, Joel playing the way he did with a minutes restriction early on and then ultimately playing at a, just an incredible level and then ultimately getting hurt and stepping out for the rest of the season. Having said all of that, we still won 28 games and had an 18-game improvement. I think that's a testament to the development that you saw with some of our good young players, the coaching staff fighting and clawing for everything they could get out of these guys, and they responded with a performance night in and night out that kept us from avoiding a lot of embarrassing situations or losses or losing streaks. It actually put us in a competitive environment night in and night out. So we are proud of where we are based on everything that we overcame to get to 28 wins. But, we always talk about what if, and now we've got some certainty going into this season. We know we're going to have two healthy bodies in Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. We know that Jared Bayless is like having a free agent signee, even before free agency opens. It's now, what can we do with the third pick? What can we do with free agency? And what can we do with our flexibility to force maybe a trade opportunity that is going to put us at that next point of, really taking a step forward. And, I put together a plan, an idea when I first got here for ownership, and in speaking with Brett, talking along the lines of a gradual, steady improvement year to year, but there was a planned tranche of wins, a number of wins in year 1, year 2, and year 3, and ultimately, somewhere along the line there was a playoff projection. I'll leave that internal for now. But there was a playoff projection and also a contending projection, like when would we be ready? And now that some of these things have kind of played out, we end up winning the pick with Ben Simmons last year. Now we know we have the third pick. We're going to have these future assets going forward. I think it's easier for us to start to gauge and monitor where we're going to be as it relates to that plan going forward.
You mentioned, Brian, that you said we know we're going to have two healthy bodies with Joel and Ben. Now, the optimists like myself, and sounds like you, could say, I don't have any doubt that those guys were hurt, they're healthy, they'll be ready. You have so many people on the other side that despise the 4 years and look at this, and their answer is always quick. You got one guy who's never played and another guy who's only played 31 games. How do you walk those guys off the ledge?
Yeah, injuries are going to happen. The Ben Simmons thing was probably more freakish than anything. He just landed on someone's foot. Joel comes in with a little bit higher risk proposition, even as a draftee that year. But at the end of the day, where they both are now, where they are progressing with their health, and the projection that we have for them is to start the season healthy. And we're very anxious and looking forward to that moment. I think it's natural for fans to get frustrated with some of the things that happened. I mean, even going back to the Nerlens selection, you're drafting a guy who has an ACL tear, is not going to play for the first year. That was all part of a planned strategy that was in place, obviously, and, it carried out a certain way. Everything we're doing now is about preparing us to win, and preparing us to win in steps that are not long-term steps, but we're having both short-term planning with long-term implications. So we want to win now, we want to improve, and there's a true point of emphasis toward moving this program forward.
Obviously, now you have your pick. The offseason plan comes into play. So does Bryan Colangelo start picking up the phone and calling the top-tier guys? Is that a spot where the Philadelphia 76ers think they are? And some would say, well, this team won 28 games, 10 the year before. Is Joel and Ben the type of players that you think are sellable to the top-level guys?
Well, we're going to find that out, after July 1st, where free agency begins. I'll just say the tenor in the marketplace, if you will, because people do have a tendency to, speak loudly despite their whispering effect. I think there's a number of positive indications that we are on everyone's radar, perhaps not ready to close the deal officially as a number one destination for a top-tier free agent, but the tide is turning, and people have taken notice to what has transpired here. They've taken notice to the way the team plays, the style of play, the effort with which they play, the job that Coach Brown does. They've taken note of a brand new training complex that we have. That we're really taking steps forward as an organization. And the most meaningful part of it is always, the chance for someone to come here and win. And there is still a little bit of a waiting game, just as you indicated. There's a couple of guys that haven't played many games yet, Ben and Joel in particular, that are attractive pieces for people to say, I want to play with those guys, but they probably want to see a little bit more of a body of work. That's not to say we won't talk to some of the key free agents. That's not to say we won't land a key free agent, but we're definitely entering a new phase of attractiveness and marketability that I think that it's been a struggle because of the losing over the past several seasons. So we're on everyone's radar, and it should be some good results in the future years.
You're number 3. Anybody, any particular style fit that initially sticks out to you when your card comes up? Was there a guy that jumps into your mind immediately of the kind of guy you want on June 22nd?
Well, on May 16th or 17th, it's hard to make that determination. There's a lot that happens in our draft preparation prior to June 22nd that happens now. We can scout and observe and evaluate over time all these prospects, but until you have a chance to sit down with them face to face, talk to them, speak with them, understand them better as people, better decision makers, et cetera, you learn more during this process. We've done due diligence where you find out as much as you can without contact, but now contact is available to us, so we can speak to them, we can speak to family members, we can dive deeper into our mix of evaluation. Further, the medical review is huge for us, and we want to make sure that we're uncovering everything and also getting access to the records and the MRIs and the scans that are available to people. And in some cases where players didn't go to the combine, we have to conduct our own physical or share that information with other teams, upon agreement with the agent and the player agreeing to do so. So there's circumstances where we need to begin that medical review process now. There's some cases where we have access to the medical review already via the league-wide combine. So it's all in the works now. We think at 3, it's an interesting dynamic in this year's draft. There's a lot of talent, and some of those players with that talent fit needs for us positionally. So I think this is a year that you could literally say that will probably address both need and talent, taking, say, a best available player in the same vein, because you'll be able to, really knock both of those issues out with one selection.
All right, he's the Sixers president of basketball operations, general manager. They got the 3rd pick last night. They swapped with the Kings, and they get to work now. They get their hands dirty, and we'll find out June 22nd who the next piece of the Sixers puzzle will be, and free agency should be fun. So, Bryan, we appreciate a couple minutes, and hopefully we'll get a chance to catch up during free agency.
Anytime you want to talk prior to the draft, we're here. We're doing our work. We're scouting. Next week we're going to go on all these agent pro days where the agents actually lead these workouts, and just one more hit of an opportunity to see them up close and personal, and maybe share some communication with them.
Sounds good. Thanks, Bryan.
Thank you.